Ooh, it's a quick one this week, you guys. This week, I've been thinking about insecurity, aka the act of being too hard on yourself, and how we can fight those doubtful thoughts about ourselves and where we are in our lives. First of all, let's accept that it's going to creep up on us from time to time. We all get insecure. And maybe a little bit of that is good because it keeps us humble. But consistently being your own worst enemy is just a little wild, right? Like I'd even call it counterproductive. So it's been on my mind, and these are some ways that I'm trying to fend it off when need be. 1, identify what kind of insecurity you're really dealing with. So physical insecurities can be alleviated with some healthy habits. If it's about who you are, then it's going to take some soul searching. And if it's based on nervousness about making big changes in your life, it's going to take some courage and the ability to coexist with a little bit of fear. So take a second to just really acknowledge which kind you're dealing with in the moment. 2, try not to take yourself too seriously. Not everything has to be a big deal, and nobody's perfect. This is one that I have to remind myself of often because I have the tendency to overthink, and my personality tries to get all intense on me sometimes. But when you're living in a mindset that's too serious, everything seems so permanent. And that's just not reality. So if we want to make moves and allow ourselves to take some healthy risks, we've got to maintain the ability to let things slide and trust that we can adjust to unexpected circumstances. You've got to be able to say, oh, well, to certain things. Change is just so possible, and damn it if it isn't reliable. I mean, if you invited change to a party with a Facebook invite, like it's not going to hit maybe. Like it's going to confidently reply with going. It's probably going to show up early and it's going to bring a shareable snack. And here's another thing. You know how if you pay attention to your inner monologue, there seems to be 2 different people in there, right? There's one that's you, and then there's like a little critical judge in there that's always trying to make you doubt yourself. Well, give your inner judge a visual and make him look absurd. Maybe it's an actual little judge in robes. Maybe he's got something in his teeth or toilet paper perpetually stuck to the bottom of his shoe that he's destined to never notice. Or maybe it's like a judgmental old woman neighbor type that just never seems to approve of how you take out your garbage. And she's fond of floral shirts. Maybe her hair kind of looks like cauliflower. I don't know. Like take a second to just kind of picture your inner critic. Put it in a weird outfit. Make it look silly because you want to make it easier to take this voice less serious. So many of us let those little critics convince us that we're not worth it. What is it? Love, success, happiness, acceptance. Fill in whatever makes sense to you there. But look how much easier it gets to ignore it now that your little mind critic looks ridiculous. You remember when they used that ridiculous spell in Harry Potter to turn their worst fears into comedic nonsense? It's the same thing, but it's just in your own brain, and we're not magical. So that part sucks, but there's not much we can do about it. 3, make some choices and learn to accept a little discomfort. So when we feel insecure about ourselves and are made to feel wrong by others or by our own thought patterns, we tend to seek a way to numb ourselves, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, sex, or disappearing into fake worlds. Insert your vice here. It's all for the same reason. We're doing all that to escape the moment when this moment is all that we really have, right? Our past is a memory and our future is conjecture. But we can make choices now that can affect that future. So it's this moment that we have the power to do something to get ourselves closer to the things we really want. So here's where we really have to struggle against the need for instant gratification and the urge to detach and fight those insecurities so that we can take that next small step that will lead us to a greater goal and hopefully greater confidence. So maybe even challenge yourself to resist the path of least resistance sometimes. Like there's a huge danger in becoming too comfortable and just making it through the day. We kind of become thin facades of who we should be. Maybe not always in a noticeable way. but maybe just enough to hold ourselves back. So don't let insecurity about the outcome deter you, and acknowledge that when you're about to step out of that comfort groove, you're going to feel a little panicky. Things might get a little slippery. You're probably going to get real nervous and be tempted to buy a fidget spinner. But you have to lean into that discomfort and keep going with a pragmatic dedication to adapt to whatever new situations present themselves. 4, be aware of who you keep around and whose advice carries weight. Insecurity obviously can be perpetuated by the people around us. We tend to feel pressure to conform to what fits in our social circles, to what work needs us to be, to what others expect us to be. Because guess what? As humans, we desire connection and acceptance. That's a big key word there, am I right? I want to be accepted. You want to avoid being affected by people who try to make you feel small. People that love us or care about us can even be sources of fear because they're full of warnings. They want us to be safe, so they encourage us to stay still. Understand that their warnings are coming from a good place, but you can't let that foster the insecurity in you. We also can't let insecurity get us off track, even if the results take time. That's the price we pay for living in a culture that prizes instant gratification. Fight that, The important thing is that you're doing something and that you find people that will encourage you to branch out and help motivate you when what you're working towards is simply going to be a process. Also, sometimes our insecurity is based on the fact that we don't think we'll be accepted as our true selves, and that if we aren't, that it will break us. And that's just not it. It's not it. It won't break you. It's okay when someone doesn't get you. It's okay to be hurt by it, and it's okay to let that go and become a little bit more resilient every time. It'll force you to move on and find the people that should really be a part of your tribe anyway. When we're even just trying to become more aligned with who we really are, I believe that we exude an energy that can even attract those who we don't need to feel insecure around. And that's when it really starts to get spicy. Most importantly, number 5, know yourself and work on yourself. Quite frankly, when you have a firm grasp of who you are, there's a lot less room for insecurity to survive long term. We got to stop blindly feeling and reacting to life and situations and learn to ask why. When you can answer why about who you are, the choices you make, and about your goals, you've just given yourself so much more ground to stand on in the face of outside influence and judgment. So just think about that for a second. Think about just wandering around the planet, not trying to understand your own reactions and thought paradigms. It's like, that's some chaos right there. And it's a great way to waste a whole bunch of time. How can we even be expected to confidently navigate this world and its craziness if we haven't looked inward first to make sure that we're on track, Gotta stop worrying about what other people are doing sometimes and worry about what we should be doing right now. Now, when the phrase, "I'm not good enough," pops up in my head, maybe you guys have heard that sometimes, I replace it with, "You're being dramatic. Are you trying your best? And what can you learn from this?" Because nobody's perfect. So maybe we approach it from a place of, I'm good enough, but always working and willing to be better. So even when we're in the most insecure of places, and trust me, I get there, we need to kind of nurture a feeling of hope, because the hopeless make poor decisions. Train your brain, even when you don't believe it, to decide that tomorrow will be better, and that your sometimes uncomfortable choices to bank on yourself today will matter. All in all, what it really comes down to resist unhealthy levels of insecurity is that we should direct our energy towards building self-esteem, self-knowledge, and self-compassion for the moments we don't meet up to sometimes irrationally high expectations from outside sources and ourselves. Own yourself and treat others in a way that will encourage them to be more confident in who they are too, because you don't know what inner insecurities they could be struggling with. Doing all those things then makes us better for the people around us. So That's where my head's been at this week, you guys. I was just going to write about this, but instead decided to talk it out with you and just see where it went. But if you head to my site, CourtneyDiamond.com, I'm going to post up there a written version of these thoughts. There's also going to be a link to an enlightening Myers-Briggs-based personality test that I find fascinating, and a link to 2 books that have helped me find a way to these kinds of thought patterns. And don't give me that whole I don't read nonsense, okay? Because there's a little thing called an audiobook these days, and they're legit. No excuses to not ingest the knowledge if you've got the curiosity. All right? Okay. Anyways. Thanks so much for listening. And I'll have a new guest next week for you guys. This podcast is just under a month old as of now. And I'm 7 episodes in. And, I've really been enjoying this. And I've appreciated the great feedback that I've gotten from a lot of you so far. So thank you for that. I hope you keep joining me every Tuesday for new conversations. You can find me at Courtney Diamond on the socials. Subscribe and leave a nice rating on iTunes if you can. And maybe share the podcast with somebody this week if you're feeling real nice. I'd appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.